Hello, and welcome to Ideas with Diana on this December 30th, 2020, just before New Year's Eve. As you can see, I'm wearing my Milwaukee LGBT T-shirt. Is what I wore when I was a volunteer at Pride Fest in 2019 with Nikita and Dale. Part of the thing about what Pride Fest is, basically, they had it in two ways. They had one section where basically they had different merchandise and everything, and also they had a family section. So basically, everyone could come with the children and everything else. And where I was volunteers, I was volunteering by the bar near the main stage. So I had a chance to see many of the acts. And actually, with this shirt, I actually wear this as a sweep shirt at night and as sort of like a lounge shirt. Like I'm doing today, it's just lounging. We had a big snowstorm, about 6 inches of snow. It really looks nice outside. I posted some things on Facebook. It's wonderful to see. It's just right now, basically, it's about going to get down to about 11 above. So many of us are just doing basically what most people do is get a cup of coffee or a soda or something, or just a snack and sit down and watch a movie, talk with friends. I actually had a friend Ron visit over this morning. We had coffee. What we're still trying to do is we're still trying to see what we can do about basically getting the show back online, and also we're thinking about contacting some different places for podcasts, like radio.com and iHeart and others, to see what we can do in regards to basically with the show. And another thing I saw on Facebook too is a post from a while back about asking whether to get WIPZ back on the air, and I said yes. But one thing I would like to see when WIPZ does eventually get back on the air is adopt a policy that alumni and other people have to go on weekends, because for two reasons. One is basically it's very hard. It squishes the schedule too much. And on Sundays, for example, those who like us who do a live show, we're locked out of the building if we don't get there by 2:00, and that makes it hard for everybody. The reason why I prefer weekdays though is because Ideas with Diana started on a weekday on Mondays at 11 a.m. and then Mondays at 1 p.m. and both those are good times. But the thing about a weekday show is it's basically it allows us to do a live show. Also makes it easier for us to coordinate with other guests to come on the show too, because those two times allow guests to come on either like basically just as an early lunch or basically as a late lunch, just for a short segment or something like that. Well, my thoughts for the new year are that hopefully we can get back to doing things like we used to do. I'm just trying to see this when I get one pop here. And part of the thing is the reason why I'm hoping that we can get back to like what we used to do is have concerts, Summerfest, Pride Fest, different festivals in Milwaukee, different festivals in Chicago, Taste of Chicago. The thing is, we have the vaccine, we have multiple vaccines being rolled out, and just a thought to remember though, with those who are taking the vaccine. Remember, if you start with one vaccine, the second shot has to be the same vaccine. So if you start with Pfizer, you have to have the second shot with Pfizer. If you start with Moderna, you have to have the second shot with Moderna. You can't intermix the two. So just throw that out there. The other thing about this is, people are trying to do the best with the coping with this, but some people still, but people do have concerns. I thought this was a very good cover. This is the recent issue of 2600 magazine, and it says select all images with the blue stick, quick to verify once that there are none left. And what the point is basically is about how vaccine how the crisis has been managed based on different states, depending on who's which political party is in power. It really shouldn't have to become a consideration. However, it has been, and it's just really, people say, well, trust the science, trust the science, trust the science. Well, yes, science is supposed to be basically areligious and apolitical, as defined and practiced by the late Carl Sagan. And when Carl Sagan, would say something scientifically, he was the Walter Cronkite of science. When Carl Sagan said something, people knew that he didn't have anything. There's no hidden agenda. He was not getting anything under the table. There's no payola or anything else. You knew that Carl Sagan was saying it because it was sciences, and he said it basically on a altruistic basis in that, though. But basically, as many people work in research, or many people who haven't worked in research eventually find out that there are many researchers who are basically favored by certain medical companies because they get most of their grants from them, or so they have to be careful what they say. And even the call a strike, and this goes back to my previous podcast about making sure that the called third strike is called and not passed over because basically someone's afraid that the local town which the person lives in, or the company that the person has a lot of financial support from, is going to get mad at them. It does go back to in golf, you play the ball as it lies. You don't take the hand mashing and throw it out and that like that. And unless in a tournament golf, even when you're playing golf, it's not the score, it's how you play the game. And eventually, when you play the game right, your score will improve, and also others will support you for that. Well, for my New Year's wishes, though, I just would like to say that I hope everyone is doing well, and for New Year's, I hope everyone is basically able to sort of talk or chat with some people, the loved ones. I mean, what I do basically during the day is every so often I take my cell phone and call friends and chat to see how they're doing. They call me to see how I'm doing. And that's even though we live in the same city, we all have been following the thing about trying to do limited travel, staying in an apartment as much as possible. The one thing a good friend of mine mentioned when they came down to visit from northern Wisconsin was about this mask thing, because they noticed that I and another friend were subconsciously putting on the mask when we didn't have to, and they said, "Well, wait a minute, do you realize that you're doing that?" And I first I didn't realize, and my other friend didn't realize it, but the thing is, it's one thing, comply with the mask thing where it's needed, but don't get to the point where you're subconsciously putting it on the mask like that, because when you're putting on the mask, then you're getting into something which some people sort of would think of the Manchurian Candy when someone says, "Remember the Red Queen," and the guy goes into a certain mode following a command that was given to him by someone practicing bad hypnosis like that, though. So just follow the rules as where it's needed, but minimal compliance, but basically don't get to the point of basically where you're self you're self editing yourself, putting on like this, because in lighting, that's the thing lighters have to face all the time, and especially lighters that live in countries where the freedoms are limited greatly compared to the United States, because basically in past generations, leaders in totalitarian countries had to be very careful how they go, and and that was called something called self-editing, that they had to think, okay, if I write this, what's going to happen consequence-wise and other things, rather than tell the truth of what happened. And the second thing, though, is that just when this thing does get over, I hope basically all of us can meet again in coffee shops, McDonald's, Wendy's, and chat like we used to, and not have to worry about basically looking over our shoulder whether we're going to get a ticket from from a city official for being too close together. Because once this thing is over, we should the strict laws on basically wearing the mask, social distancing, number of people in a restaurant, those should be repealed. And my concern is basically, it's like, prohibition was easy to pass, but basically it took a constitutional amendment to repeal it. And it actually took basically the Untouchables and other people to realize that, that basically it was better to repeal it because what happened with prohibition, it encouraged the development of a certain type of culture. And that's why many people, when in the federal government, even national governments, realize that when they made laws, that you can't legislate morality. Even a good policeman and policewomen will tell you that when there's a law about legislating morality, they really grind their teeth on that, because those are the laws that are most likely to be broken. In that, though, and for example, like when a law is based upon morality, like for example, if this COVID virus passes and we're all required to wear a mask and such, that becomes a moral law, and then there are going to be a lot of people that'll break it, because basically it's like, well, why is it required? I mean, and to give you another example, in Wisconsin for many years, it still has on the books a law on cohabitation. To some in our audience, I'll just define it. To others, bear with me. Cohabitation is basically when a couple, whether it's a traditional couple or basically other type of couple, decide to live together, and they may be in an engagement phase where they're planning to get married later, or may not. But in Wisconsin, though, couples were not allowed to live together unless they were married. However, basically, by the time the 60s came, many people in Wisconsin thought, well, that law was passed from Old English law, and eventually it fell into disuse, because even police departments and others failed to enforce it because it became a moral law. And basically, they said, no, you can't stop people from basically wanting to live together, so basically but it still hasn't come off the books in Wisconsin. And that's what my point is about these current laws on COVID is, when we do get through this, how soon it will be before they come off the books. Basically, the restaurants don't have to worry about $20,000 fine or $5,000 fine, or about people tattling to get some of the fine money and stuff like that. That's because we don't. No one wants to live in the East Berlin culture where you have to look over your shoulder to see if a health official is going to come in and fine you, or someone's going to tip them off or something like that. That's why in Chicago a lot of businesses are really suffering. Milwaukee, the police department actually has to go with the health official, because the businesses are at the point where basically that's the livelihood. If they lose their livelihood, there's no place else for them to work in Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is a community still where basically, for example, just use another prop. If you start at this level, in the past, usually in most places in the country, and even in Milwaukee, if you start one level, you could go up the ladder and go up and get promoted. Well, right now, Milwaukee is sort of like let's see if I can get to this guy. It's sort of like you start here. It's sort of like stalactite. You don't move past this. And what that does is that builds frustration in other things in the work area, and it's the same in other areas about this stalactite culture. And this is why when basically certain businesses, that people that run their own business, go out of business, they realize that when they have the business up here, when they lose their business, they may fall all the way down here, or may basically fall off the radar and have to go live with family. And that's why I'm saying with this COVID, we really need to do a better job of vaccinating people, getting it done faster. I did hear President-elect Biden's talk today blaming the administration for the current administration for being so slow. I personally don't feel it's the fault of the current administration being so slow, because when I see different news things, like for example on WBBM's news page, they showed about one article where part of the COVID vaccine was lost due to a healthcare worker leaving it out for too long, not putting it in the proper freezer. And this has happened in other hospitals in this area and across the country too. So it's not. So basically, that's no fault of President Trump or his administration. If someone at a local hospital, basically has a badge that becomes expired because it's left out for too long, no, that's not his fault. That's and so I mean, basically, the buck passing has to stop. I mean, basically, it's the thing I'm surprised about though is well, I shouldn't say but during the first Gulf War, I worked as a medical researcher, and for many of us, basically, we President Bush and General Schwarzkopf, we trusted what they said and what they're going to do. And the thing is, what happened with both of them is when the day came to change from Desert Storm to Desert Shield, everything was ready. They followed right through. There was no delay, no hesitancy, no this group isn't prepared. This group, everyone was prepared and ready to go basically on day one and go right through. Like right now with the vaccine, I'm still seeing rookie mistakes, like this thing about leaving the vaccine out, and I can partially understand why that can happen, because sometimes in the hospital, depending on on the day, you could get many codes. And if you get many codes, and someone's get pulled in to help with the code, well, of course the vaccine will be left out, and there's nothing that can be done about that. But I thought, I think basically that maybe there could be something worked out where basically to make sure that there's some floaters that basically can, when the vaccine comes, like when the dry ice, a floater, when a vaccine comes, it's trained as to how to open it and put it in the freezer, so that basically, when someone is called for a code, the floaters can do some of the other tasks like that though. And what I mean by a floater is basically, a floater is someone who's like for example, floater is someone who works in the hospital but is not trained to handle codes, like for example, heart attacks, respiratory distress, others. But what they are trained to do is they are trained to work in certain administrative tasks and also laboratory tasks, like putting the vaccine away. When I interned in the emergency room, I was a floater. I did some tasks. I helped clean the instruments. We set the rooms with all the proper cleaned instruments from the autoclave, so everything was ready, and also did floating tasks like taking paperwork, gathering prescriptions, transporting patients, and that freed the work of basically the ER nurses and the ER doctors, so that when we did get our sort of feast mode, basically feast mode, when we had a lot of people coming in, we were ready. And also part of our job as a floater was I would listen to the CB, and what happens, I was trained to realize, what ambulance would go where, like, like in the old days, Med4 and Kenosha would go to KMH, and that's what I did by ER, and other ambulances would go to St. Catherine. So basically, when I heard the rescue calls, I knew about 5 minutes ahead of time if someone was going to be coming our way. So when I heard a rescue call, I go and inform the nurse, the charge nurse, that I heard a rescue call, and then she'd say, okay, well, get room 3 ready. We have one person coming in, or get 2 rooms ready. And that's sort of how we did. We sort of ran a little bit like a MASH unit. So I was sort of like the radar, basically, as a floater in the ER. But I think that's what needs to be done with some of the hospitals. However, nowadays we're doing something as a floater, due to the amount of administrative paperwork and other things that exist nowadays, which is different compared to when when I started in the 80s. This is where basically the federal government could help, because basically, um, sometimes people complain about one party versus another, but this is a case where, when hospitals need a floater, let's suspend the red tape. Let's just suspend the red tape for a while. Basically, you need someone as a floater, fine, okay, sign them up as a floater, and basically suspend all the red tape about this, that. Just basically, take the red tapes that exist and exactly what is absolutely required of this red tape to get done, and maybe put it down to here, and with the others, basically, if it's gonna be basically a long term, get to it when you can, but basically just take it from here and down to here, get this red tape thing, because government loves to work on forms. That's their version of sex. They love forms, and and in the medical field, you learn to carry a good pen, one that always lights, because basically you're always lighting. Sometimes people, when they see doctors, they always wonder, well, let me get another pop here for you. When they see doctors, they see them on this shirt. They say, like, well, wait, this is not enough. Hold on. There we go. Okay, now it's set. He's going to the hospital. You see a doctor. You say, well, no, why are they carrying all these pens? Can't. That's because basically some of the pens they give them, like they first try to light something. Oh, this guy doesn't work. No, I don't have time to throw it away. All right, this guy doesn't work. No, don't have time to throw away this guy. Oh, fine, this guy lights. All right. And that's why you see them always carrying all these pens instead of giving them one good pen, like that, though. And and that's part of the red tape. The red tape says, we can buy $10,000 of pens of this poor quality pen, for so much, compared to 1,000 of these good quality pens. So these pens cost 1/10 of this pen. However, most of the time these pens clog up, don't light. These pens always light. They don't smudge. If you're left-handed, they don't smudge. They have quick drying ink. But the thing is, the red tape makes it easier to buy this than it does to buy that. And I don't mean to sound like Milton Friedman with the pencil, but that's part of the thing of how we're going to have to solve this COVID, is cut back on the red tape, get quality materials, and also get floaters, and cut down on the paperwork needed to get floaters. I mean, basically, there's some things you have to do. Basically, and just basically expedite those required things you have to do. Just have some people that just work at taking care of the float applications, or doing all the minimally required things you have to do, rather than all this paperwork to make someone in administration sex happy because they see all this paperwork. Just do it that way. And once we can do that and stop passing blame between one party and another and something, and say, look, as Americans or as Europeans, we got to get this done. We got to work together. And even friends of ours in the UK, we got to get this done and get it going, and stop passing the blame between political parties. We'll get it done. Like in the first Gulf War, when we made our mind to go from Desert Shield to Desert Storm, there wasn't a massive debate. Basically, well, should we do it now? Should we do it on this date? As like the date was set, we're doing it, done, and that's how we should do the decisions here, because this COVID is really like like the first Gulf War. It does take that type of management, does take that type of mentality. And it's not something to be debated at a society tea or an academic tea. It's like a war. We because basically there are millions of people impacted. There are millions of people that have been killed. Just to give an example, in the United States, I think the death count in the United States is about approaching 300,000. Well, many people protested the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War killed 54,000 people in service, plus that Well, so basically, the death count in the U.S. is basically 6 times higher than what were killed in the Vietnam War, and we're approaching the number of people killed that were in World War II. So, really to solve this on a world basis, we really need to think as a military strategy. Basically, we need to stop blaming political parties. We need to focus on the problem, keep to the knitting, and when we set a date to get it done, it's done. No ifs, ands, or buts. And we set goals too. Basically, Biden promises 100,000 doses, 100 days. Well, I hope that can be done. I really do hope. But I've been hearing now that there may be 100,000 doses in April. May take until April. But the original thing was to have 100,000 doses in March week before Biden said the 100-day thing, and now the 100,000 is now expanded to April. We need to really start working together, and also we need to basically have complete groups. So you just can't have one group saying, "Well, we're just going to have all Democrats in our group, and we're going to have a mutual admiration society, and we're going to solve this problem." And another one's going to say, "Well, we're going to have all Republicans," and then with us in the middle, it's like, okay, well, you guys are chattering and yelling at each other and want to be the talking heads on the TV. Well, nothing's done. Well, we're stuck with having to live with this. Well, here's an idea. How about we include us in the middle, and with the talking heads, fine. We'll send you over to a country club. You two can argue with each other and such and such and such, while we have the real people on this side and real people on this side that we want to work together. Join us in the middle, and we put our heads together, and we solve it like the way we solved the first Gulf War. Well, let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at Diana1A, as I prefer to answer messages that way. In the future, as I mentioned before, this is going to sound like a broken record. I am trying to have Lana, Nikita, and Matt back, but right now in Wisconsin, we have limited meeting rules. So basically, it's only if I did have it, only be one other person allowed on the podcast. So I'm hopefully in the new year we'll be able to get the whole gang back together. But until then, I'll keep doing the podcast, and I'll try to get Lana and Nikita to join in. It's just a little bit hard because they don't have the technology, and also they have sometimes other things that they have to do at this time. Well, so let me know what you think. And again, to reach me, I'm on Twitter at Diana1A. And for everyone, have a happy new year, and try to keep in contact with your friends by phone or other means as possible, as this is important.